Hi, how is it going? Welcome to Code with Z. Today's question is LeetCode number 21, merge two sorted lists. And in this question, we're basically given two sorted linked lists and we gotta sort them. Alrighty, let's solve this together. I'll visualize everything so I make sure you fully understand how to solve this problem. So as you can see, these two are our linked lists and they are already sorted. And we gotta merge these two in a way that they stay sorted, like so. But how do we go from these to this here? So our intuition for sorting a normal list of numbers is that we're gonna compare two numbers and we're gonna put the smallest one in the beginning and we're gonna keep on doing that until the end. The same thing applies for our linked lists here. So each one of these circles that you see here, they're called nodes and they have two properties. One is a value and the other one is next. The next is basically this arrow here that's pointing to the next node, and the value is the number that we see inside of the circle, which is this 1 or 2 or 4 here. So technically we could just make a new dummy node like so and add these one by one to our dummy node. So we're gonna loop through these two lists, and on each round we're gonna pick the smallest number and we're gonna add it to our result here. So whatever we have here is gonna be our result at the end, and the way we add these nodes to our dummy node here is by saying the next of our dummy node is gonna be this node here. So whatever we add here, that's gonna be the next of this one. So they're gonna be connected and they're gonna have this arrow between them. So let's visualize this. As you can see, we're in the first round of our loop and we're gonna be comparing these two together. And we're gonna start from here because these two nodes are the heads of our linked lists. And we're gonna be like, which one of these two are smaller? Well, they are equal and it doesn't matter which one we pick. So we're gonna, for example, pick the first one and we're gonna add it to our result here. So let's do that. As you can see, we said the next of our dummy node is gonna be this node here. So because we've taken care of this node here, we're gonna move on to the next of this node, which is this 2 node here. And then we're gonna be like, between 2 and 1, which one is smaller? Well, we know it is this one here. So we're gonna add this node to the next of our last node, meaning the next of this node here is gonna be this node, like so. So the next of this one is gonna be this one here. And then because we've taken care of this, we're gonna move on to its next node. And then in the next round, we're gonna be comparing these two and we're gonna ask, which one of these two is smaller? Well, it is 2. So let's add 2 here, like so, and move on to the next one. In the next round, we're gonna be comparing 4 and 3. 3 is smaller, so let's add it here. And then we're gonna move on to this one. Between 4 and 4, which one is smaller? It doesn't matter, let's add this one here. And then we've covered this list, and the only thing that remains is this list here. So there's nothing to compare it with. We're gonna add this to here, but I want to emphasize on this point that from the moment we don't have anything to compare our value with, meaning if we've actually looped through one of our lists and there's only one list remaining, we're not going to compare it with anything. So if we had, for example, more nodes here, we wouldn't actually loop through them and we're just going to add them to our result. But we didn't have these 2 nodes here. However, I still wanted to emphasize on that point. And now we got to return our result, and our result is anything next to our dummy node that we defined in the beginning. And that's gonna be this. We're literally returning the next of our dummy node here. And the next of our dummy node, as you can see, is our answer. Now let's code this in the simplest way possible. Alrighty, so first let's define our dummy node, just like we saw in the slides. And this is gonna be equal to a new list node. And this was given to us by the question itself, as you can see here. And this is its implementation. As you can see, it's going to create a node for us, and it's going to have 2 properties, a value property and a next property. Now below this, we're going to need a variable called current, and this is going to be equal to our dummy node. And the reason we need this current variable is because at the end of our code, we're going to say return dummy node dot next. So we're gonna return anything that's after our dummy node. So we gotta have the reference for where our dummy node is. And throughout our code, we should not update the value of this dummy node here, because if we lose the reference, we're not gonna know what to return at the end, because we need the dummy node dot next to be returned at the end. So we're gonna assign current to be equal to dummy node, so we can actually update current however we want without updating our dummy node. And you're gonna see that in the code, don't worry. So first of all, let's remove this for now. And then below this, we're gonna have our loop. So we're gonna loop through the first list and the second list that was given to us. So we're gonna say, while our first list exists, meaning it's not null or empty, and our second list also exists, do the following. We're gonna say if list1.value. So if the value of the first node in our first list is smaller than list2.value, then the value in the first node in our second list, do the following. So we know this is the smallest, so we gotta add this basically to our result. So we're gonna say current dot next is gonna be equal to our list one. We're literally saying add the node to our result. So this is gonna make the error that we saw, just like we saw in the slides. And this is gonna add this node to our result. And because we've taken care of this node in the first list, we're gonna be like list one is gonna be equal to list one dot next. So move on to the next node. And then below this, let's scroll down a bit. We're gonna say else, meaning if this was not smaller, so that means it was greater or equal, we're gonna be like current dot next is equal to list two. And then same thing, we're gonna say list two is equal to list two dot next. So we've taken care of this node here, so we want our list two to be equal to the next node. So throughout this, we're gonna add a node to our current, and we want to add more nodes in this loop. So we're gonna be like current is equal to current dot next. So we can also move to the next position in our result linked list. And then at the end, after our loop, because this is gonna add all of the nodes as long as these two exist to our current, after this, we're gonna say if list one still exists, meaning it's not null or empty, that means, for example, list two was shorter and we've actually done comparing these two together, but list one still has more nodes that should be added to our result. So we're gonna say current dot next is gonna be equal to list one. We're literally saying whatever remains from the first list, just add it to our current because we don't care. Now there's nothing to compare it with. And else, if the second list exists and the first one was actually shorter, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna say current dot next is gonna be equal to list two. And then at the end, we're gonna say return dummy node dot next. Now let's zoom out a little bit, like so. This is all of our code. Let's run it. Moment of truth. Let's see if we're gonna pass our tests. As you can see, all three of them are passed. Now let's submit it, and we're beating 85% of all of the other submissions. That's awesome. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and keep on coding.